Hi y'all, it's Annelies, and about a week ago, Apple announced the iPhone SE, the new edition of the SE, the 2020 SE, the SE that would be SE number 2, but they're just calling it the iPhone SE to make it super not confusing at all. But since they announced it, I've received a lot of questions from people that I know saying, Annelies, did you hear about the new iPhone? What do you think about it? Are you going to get it? So, in this video, I wanted to talk about my thoughts about the iPhone SE and why I think it is one of the most important smartphones on the market right now. Okay, let's get this out of the way up top. No, I have not seen the iPhone SE in person, although I would love to see it in person. If anybody has one they want to send me, Apple, Tim Cook, if you're watching. But yeah, I don't have the iPhone SE. I haven't been able to see it because of the state of the world right now, obviously. Had an Apple store been open, I probably would have already gone in and got my hands on it and at least been able to test it out in the stores. I'm not in the ranks of iJustine or your average consumer yet. But with that being said, I don't have the ability to purchase one for myself just to try out. However, from Apple's website alone, I can already tell that this is a phone that I love. If you do want to see some really great hands-on reviews, I will leave some of my favorites linked down in the description. Okay, now let's get to those first questions I got. First,
Annelies, did you see the new iPhone?
I drink the apple juice. Yes, I saw the new iPhone. How could I not know that a new iPhone came out? It's me we're talking about here. I love Apple. Just as any Apple fanboy does, you know when a new product launches. Okay, but seriously, what do I think? Like I already mentioned, I think it's one of the most important phones on the market right now. First of all, the price. $400 starting out. For 64 gigabyte, for $399, you can get an iPhone that has the latest and greatest Apple chip technology on the inside of it. I think that is absolutely spectacular. A high-end smartphone, but on a budget price is great. You can look at Samsung, Google, Motorola, HTC, LG, and you're not going to find a high-end budget smartphone. Now, you could argue about the Pixel 3a and the Moto G Power. The Pixel 3a has the Snapdragon 670 in it, while the Moto G Power has the 665. And looking at when all those came out and the guts and all that stuff, it's about a year of technology difference from the iPhone SE. Now, in all honesty, a year of technology difference is not that bad, especially if we're looking at these price points, the $350 to $450 range. I think it's super important. It's great for the consumer, and it's also awesome if you're somebody who is in the market for an Android phone, but you're also on a budget. You have multiple options to go with, so that's pretty cool. The main thing that I guess I'm thinking about is that when you go to Apple's website right now, the iPhone SE is the first thing you see. It's not necessarily the same with Motorola or Google. Actually, let's fact check that. I don't know about Google. I know for sure not Motorola because I was on their website yesterday. Google.com is a search engine. Yeah, meet Pixel 4. It's not the 3A. But, just to prove I'm not you guys, ka-chow. And in case if you were curious, it's like 2008 and the Razr was the first thing that I saw. I don't know if that makes sense, if you get what I mean by that, but that just says something to me. Now back to the iPhone SE. This generation of the iPhone SE, the 2020 or the second generation, varies a lot in the physical size of the first generation iPhone SE. That SE was made with like an iPhone 5S body, and this one is more around the iPhone 8, like the 6 to 8 range. I personally love this change because although the 5S is a nice and small size, the 8 is still like this median range, saying it's bigger than the 5S, so people who wanted a little bit more real estate are getting that. However, you're not getting into like the enormous territory of the Plus series phones or even the 11 Pro Max. That thing is massive. Another thing I love about this SE is the revival, you could say, of Touch ID. I have always loved Touch ID. I'm a Touch ID stan. I have it on my iPad Pro, I have it on my MacBook Pro. I've always loved Touch ID. And that was the one thing I knew I was gonna miss with going with my iPhone XS. And I have Face ID. Face ID, she's great, we love her. However, it's been a little bit of a pickle when you go outside and you have to wear a mask like we all are right now, and that covers like half of your face, so Face ID doesn't exactly work great when you can't see your face. However, Touch ID is still really reliable. I've always said that Touch ID goes faster than Face ID. I think it's more reliable than Face ID, but I get why we got rid of the home button. However, there's a home button on this phone, and I think that's gonna be something a lot of people enjoy, especially for the demographic that I think that this iPhone is really marketed towards. But we'll get to that in a minute. The home button isn't something that I necessarily miss, but I like wouldn't hate to have it back either. It's kind of like a The build of the iPhone SE that kind of matches this iPhone 8 still has that glass backing. The colors are a little bit different in comparison to the iPhone 8. The white used to be more of like a frosty color, and now it's more of a true white, as well as that Apple logo is now centered on the back of the phone, and there is no iPhone. Remember when it used to say iPhone, and then I had the little like product code thingies about recycling and all that stuff on the back, and then they put that in the settings, and now iPhone's not even on there? And another physical change is that the front glass is black on all of the models, which is white, red, and black. So no matter what, if you go to the front of the phone, it's always gonna be black. When it comes to the iPhone like 6 to 8 range, it definitely is one of my favorite phone shapes. So I'm glad that it kind of got brought back for this phone. The fact that Apple took an old phone and like Frankensteined it and put the guts of the iPhone 11 into it is the success story that kooky Transylvanian doctor wishes he had. Although this idea is unconventional, in the phone sense, I think it's great. I think overall, this phone is pretty great. It's not amazing, it's not groundbreaking by any means, but I think it's pretty great. We already know we've got that great price point. Then you put in the current generation processing power. The resolution is Retina HD, so it's no OLED, but Retina HD is still really clear, especially to the average consumer's eye, if you're not talking about photographers or videographers or gamers. The camera might only have that single lens, but it does have the ability to do portrait mode on people using the back or the front facing camera. Video goes all the way up to 4K at 60 frames per second, which is like mind-blowing, so that's great quality coming with this budget phone. And I've seen through like tests and reviews on YouTube that the image stabilization with the video is actually really solid. The battery life on this phone gives you 13 hours of video alone, and imagine if you were just using it as a regular user. Maybe you're not using 13 hours of video on a super long flight and you're just using it for the basic needs. Imagine how far the battery can go then. The reason why I say this phone is great is because it's all the basic features, but just not basic quality. This phone has everything that the general public is going to need. However, they're just not basic features, it's a little bit higher quality. Now to the last question I've gotten quite a lot.
Annelies, are you gonna get the new iPhone? Are you gonna get the new iPhone SE?
Nope. I do not see a reason to. I have a perfectly working iPhone XS. I love this thing, it's been fantastic for me, and I don't see a reason to buy the iPhone SE for me personally. But that doesn't mean it's not a great phone. Now, don't get me wrong, if I had that sweet, sweet YouTube money or sponsorships or if people send me free phones, I would buy this phone so I could try it out and then maybe I'd give it to my mom or a friend or something like that. But I'm not there yet. One day, maybe we could just review phones that we don't need. But like I was saying, I think that this is a great phone for the general public, and that's who I believe this phone is marketed to. Not to power users, not to people who want the wide angle and you want to be able to do portrait mode on every object possible and you want the multi-camera thing that the 10 or the 11 Pro does, which I still don't entirely understand. The general public doesn't need that, and they also don't necessarily want to pay for it. I don't mean that like people would hate to have it on their phones if they got to pay the cheaper price, but those higher quality features come with a higher price range. Somebody who just wants a phone that's a phone that can do more than a flip phone can. They like having an iPhone, but they don't have the budget to pay for the brand new 11 Pro Max at over $1,000 price point. They just want something that works. The iPhone SE is perfect for them. And that is why I'm so happy that Apple has kept the SE lineup and finally updated it. This phone is designed for the basic, general, average user. If you're a videographer, a gamer, a photographer, then get the iPhone 11 Pro. But if you're somebody who needs to take calls, you need to do email, you need to download maybe some specific apps for work, you'd like to take pictures, you'd like to take a good selfie every once in a while, and maybe you want to document your life through video, the iPhone SE does all those things, and well. How great! And then it's only $400! Like, that's great! This phone is perfect for the average consumer or the older consumer. And when I think about folks who might be going into the Apple store and not wanting to give up their iPhone 4S that is not working, it's hanging on by its last thread, but they don't want to put in the money for something that I don't use enough features, or that phone is way too fancy for me, or they just don't have the money to spend but they need something that works. They need something to FaceTime their family or play Candy Crush if that's still a thing. And that's what the iPhone SE is perfect for. Apple made a phone that does all the basic things and then sprinkled some Apple special sauce on there, and boom, the iPhone SE was born. It's a great phone. It's not the best phone on the market. It doesn't need to be. That's not why it was made. It's a great phone at a great value for most people. What I love about the iPhone SE series is that it keeps the basic user in mind. Hi, editing Annelies, just jumping in here for a second. I know I keep really emphasizing the idea that the iPhone SE is for the basic user and it's really great for the basic user. However, I'm not trying to deter anybody away from the iPhone SE that considers themselves more than a basic user. I'm saying more of the people who are these power users who are expecting so much from their phone, and like I mentioned earlier, those tech heads who are obsessed with features and being the best of the best of the best. And I think the iPhone SE accomplishes being the best of its range and still being a great phone, from everybody down to Grandma Joe who just uses her phone for FaceTime and Candy Crush, to maybe you who likes to create content or use different apps, play games, take nice pictures. The iPhone SE keeps the basic user in mind while not just being a basic phone. It gives them more opportunity to explore the higher quality that the iPhone SE is without paying $1,000 for a higher quality phone. And that's what I think a lot of big tech heads forget about, is that there are people who just want the basics. And especially when it comes to technology, if you have more than the basics, you have to pay for more than the basics. Yeah, it would be really cool for somebody to have a wide angle lens and all these different features on the camera and what have you, and AR and all this stuff. But if they're not gonna use it, why pay for it? I think a lot of people don't necessarily think from the budget perspective. Once you've been there, it's always in your head. And so that's why I love the SE, is because it keeps the basic consumer, the person who loves Apple, the person who loves the ease of an iPhone, the accessibility of an iPhone. They love all that stuff and they want to keep it in their lives. They just don't got iPhone 11 Pro money, but they have iPhone SE money, or at least they can save up for it. And it's reasonable. People joke that the iPhone SE stands for Simple Edition, and I honestly think that's really true because it's the latest and greatest, just made simple. I really wish I could get my hands on this thing just to play around with it. I love new technology, even though I know I'm not gonna get it or like buy it for myself, but that doesn't mean I don't go into the Apple store and play around with the iPhone 11 Pro just because I love this stuff and I wish I could go into an Apple store and see it. But I've been living vicariously through all these reviews that my favorite YouTubers have been posting, and from what it looks like on paper and from what these people are saying, it seems like it's the great phone that I think it is. So those are my thoughts on the SE. This is kind of an unconventional video for me, doing a review of something that I have not touched yet, but I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I just want to share my thoughts on this, and since people were asking, I figured give the people what they want. And also, I just love talking about tech. So I figure, hey, why do I have to have the tech in front of me to be able to talk about it? I guess you can say this is like a first impressions, but I still don't have the phone in front of me, so it's just my thoughts. It's just my thoughts on the iPhone SE. And I hope you guys enjoyed listening to my thoughts. And I'd love to know what your thoughts are. So if you have been looking at the iPhone SE, or maybe you got the iPhone SE, let me know in the comments what you think about this phone. Especially the folks who got it, I would love to know why you chose the iPhone SE and why that phone made sense for you. This video is like a little bit different than the videos I've done before, so if you enjoy these types of videos, give it a like. I really appreciate it. It helps my channel out a lot, as well as if you're new, please consider subscribing to my channel. That is also a huge help, and I would love to have you join this piece of the internet that we all share together, where I make all sorts of things from tech to lifestyle to everything in between. I've got a Patreon and a podcast along with my other social media. Those will all be linked down in the description. Otherwise, that is it for me. Stay beautiful, have a marvelous day, and I'll talk to y'all in the next one. Bye!